Fire Emblem, a series that got everyone's attention in the past few years, has characters that appear a lot on Smash Bros. Nintendo puts them on their Direct as a big announcement, but they aren't an available design on the Nintendo Today app, so I think Pikmin smashes them with low def. I am an eclectic player. I play hack and slash, souls-like, JRPGs, action and adventure. Basically everything except sports games that aren't set in the Mario universe. So after I became a Switch owner, I had been interested in the franchise, but I wouldn't pay for something that I wasn't so sure about. But when they put it on Switch Online, I decided to play because why not? And this would finally be my first Fire Emblem because I don't have $6 to spend on 3 houses. In today's video, I'll be diving into this 2D tactical game that has a lot of charm for a few minutes, so stick with me to listen to my thoughts until the end. Welcome to Ricouts, your new favorite game review channel, and welcome to my first Fire Emblem review. So, what is this game? Fire Emblem, The Blazing Blade, or just Fire Emblem, is the 7th installment in the Fire Emblem series. It was actually the first one to be launched in the Occident, and the motive is due to the games being too hard for us who can only read from left to right. This book sucks! The other main reason was that a Western audience might not be interested in this genre, but after a well-succeeding title like Advance Wars on the GBA, they started to realize that maybe, just maybe, it could be a good idea to explain to us by ending the Japanese exclusivity why these two folks were in Smash Bros. Melee to begin with. Well, they didn't. Marth only came to the Western media with a DS remake called Shadow Dragon about 8 years later, and Roy was still in Japan in the prequel of this game on launch order. That's actually a sequel to this one in chronological order. Well, he appeared for the first time in Smash Bros. Melee in 2001 and had his own game in 2002, so I guess Japan didn't have much time to start questioning where at least this guy came from. The game is a prequel to the story of the Binding Blade, the first one that never came out in the US or anywhere else. However, Blazing Blade, the game I'm reviewing today, ended up being a sequel in terms of gameplay because it started in 2002 as a companion title to the Binding Blade, but took longer than the 7 months that were planned because new features were added. But what is the game actually about? The game features tactical combat between armies on a grid-based map. Different character classes affect characters' abilities, and defeating battle results in permanent death. Named just as Fire Emblem, the game was a success, enough to bring more and more games to us into the peak of popularity in the Switch era. To summarize, it all began with Advance Wars' success, but because of the enthusiastic reception Fire Emblem received, Nintendo decided years later to bring Advance Wars 1+2 in an expensive remake costing $6 that will never go down. Nintendo price policy is so awful that I can't even begin with it. And what does this teach us? Everything has a price. So if you were a gamer in the 2000s and wanted a Fire Emblem game in the West, you're going to have to accept this GBA game being launched again but overpriced this time. Nintendo fans live like Job from the Bible lived for a few months, but in our case, it's for the whole console generation. And we're still able to buy the next one because, shall we accept good from God and not trouble? Great wisdom, Job. So come on, Nintendo, take my money! Or not take it at all. At the end of the day, they still didn't explain to me why Roy was there, and I had to mod my 3DS to play a translated version of Binding Blade after I beat the Blazing Blade. It works pretty well, as you can see. In the distant past, humans and dragons coexisted peacefully until a catastrophic conflict known as a scarring led to the dragon's exile. Throughout the game, players explore various regions, including Sakai, a land inhabited by nomadic tribes, Lycia, a federation of marquesates such as Faerie and Nostia, and Bern, a centralized, militarized kingdom. The player takes on the role of a tactician discovered by Len, a young woman from Sakai whose parents and tribe were killed by bandits. With the help of 2 knights, Sen and Kent, Lyn learns she is actually Lady Lindis, the granddaughter of Hausen, the Marquess of Kaelin. Her mother, once estranged from her noble family, was his daughter. Determined to reconnect with her lineage, Lyn sets out on a journey to Kaelin to reunite with her grandfather. The narrative of the game is split between Lyn's questline and ELIWOOD's plot. There's a third storyline called Actor Mode, but this one is actually ELIWOOD's plot but with some extra chapter. I have to admit that I didn't play this chapter, so I won't be reviewing this chapter, only the main story and the side quests. Once I searched about this third mode on the internet, I understood that this mode is nearly identical to ELIWOOD's story, and I don't have interest to replay basically the whole game again just to talk to you about some extra chapter or actor's point of view. So today I'm reviewing just the main quest. And about the main quest, although Lynn's story is good, it just serves as a big tutorial, and the real story begins with ELIWOOD. The main issue I have with this plot structure is that when you want to play and use your own strategies, the game prevents you from doing so. It does this not to just teach you a new mechanic, but also to force you to follow a predetermined plan for this phase, which takes away your freedom to do as you choose. So the game basically pushes you to watch and play the way the game wants for a couple of missions. It sucks, but not that much because we have some characters here, and they are great! Okay, not necessarily great, but well written for sure. They start as stereotyping in the form of characters, but they devolve in a way that even if they don't have a lot of layers, I can say at all that they are bad characters, especially in Lynn's story. We have the good hero as Kent, the humorous but courageous womanizer as Sen, the cute and awkward girl as Florina, the magic healer Tsundere as Sarah, and the serious guy that accompanies her as her protector, Urk. They start as bland characters, but don't finish as the same ones. Not because we have a Metal Gear Solid development, but because what we have here in Lynn's arc is a simple story, but written with heart. Lynn herself is an awesome female protagonist, and even though I have a few complaints about the pacing of this first arc in terms of gameplay, I wouldn't change anything. That's why I tried my best to not let anyone get killed so that I could see their happy endings. I played this game in 2023, but I didn't go much further than the first chapter of ELIWOOD's story and dropped it at the time just because I was playing other games. But this year, I played until the end and could compare what happened with both playthroughs and the different outcomes of these side characters. It was worth it. In the ELIWOOD story, the people in the villages knew my protagonist as the legendary strategist that didn't let anyone die. Totally worth it. Talking about villages, allow me to finally talk about the gameplay, the core of this tactical turn-based game. Not the battle, not right now, but the exploration first. There's a good reason to explore in this game because the villagers not only give you some tips and explain mechanics that you wouldn't comprehend by yourself, they also give you a proper background for that chapter or the region you are exploring. It's nothing too deep, but sometimes can add some depth to the arc you are playing. We have an arc in the main campaign that I call the Arfan arc. At this point in the narrative, they even touch on some reasonable topics, like xenophobia, and if you explore to talk to some villagers, you can listen to their point of view about this topic. Like I said, not too much depth, but it is a cool thing to have in the game. In reference to the xenophobia I indicated, there are characters who most cope with this. Lynn, the protagonist, is one of them, but we have another character that I found captivating in Lynn's story arc, Wrath. I don't want to give any spoilers, but this is the character that the game uses to talk about this sensible topic, and he can be very close to the protagonist because of their geographic origin. There is a feature in this game called the support discussion, or support talk, that I didn't realize had an effect until I had finished the game. Despite the fact that I only learned about this mechanic in the middle to late game, I observed enough to conclude that the conversations between the characters on the battlefield are nice and do have good writing. The system functions like this. Depending on the unit character you choose to talk to another unit, they can have a conversation between them that, if you do this every battle, will make them have a stronger bond with each other. This can give your units a couple of nice bonuses, but the main point, in my opinion, is changing the ending of the game, or the post-ending at least. Like I said, I don't want to give any spoilers, but some things I have to explain to not deliver to you a bland, generic video that I wouldn't like to watch as a consumer. I only discovered that after the ending credits, and I felt dumb for it, so I don't want to give you the same feeling I had. So I'm gonna explain to you something very important. Fire Emblem works as a multiverse logic. We have ELIWOOD, which I'll talk about later when I discuss his story. But to focus on this elucidation, I need to tell you all that I'm gonna talk this. He's Roy's father.
I am your father. That's impossible!
Sorry guys, I know that this is too much to handle because who would guess? But let me continue. He's Roy's father in basically all the timelines because the next game needs to exist, but you don't know who his mother truly is. And that's the magic of the support system. You can have, on some level, a choice-based game with this system. If you decide to make ELIWOOD closer to some of the girls, You can. If you want one of the girls to be closer to one of the heroes, you can too. And this doesn't stop in romantic relationships. You can make a character who has a fear of the opposite sex have a full-grown character arc because you decided to use her more in support conversations with a male member of the team. That isn't just a nice feature, it's a great feature. You see, there are tons of details in this game, like the combat animations that are simply a miracle to render in the GBA because look at this, man, this is beautiful. The game has different characters, an amount of dialogue variations and animations. When you upgrade your characters with items that can make them change their class, it makes me think it's almost impossible to see every detail the game introduces because even some characters that you can recruit, you may not think of how to recruit them or even know how. And the game still has this system based on the character's relationship to change their ending. I wish I knew about this sooner. There's only one bad point about it. The boring part is that each time you do this, it counts as a turn movement and not just something you can do and move to attack after, even if you're in the same position and just decided to talk to someone at your right. Everything you do wastes your turn, even the minimal things. I don't like this choice of gameplay direction. Another bad point is because I didn't know about this system, Mylene, ELIWOOD, Hector, and everyone else ended up unmarried. Sorry bros, I messed up. Back to what I was saying, there's so much care in this game that I don't think an inattentive player will be able to fully appreciate this game in a first playthrough. And I am including myself in this because even though I paid attention to everything, I still couldn't contemplate the game in its entirety. But what I do think that everyone can appreciate is the art direction of this game. I have to say that the art direction matches so much in the emotional moments, and the OST hits like an arrow in the heart. The music was composed by Yuka Tsujioko, who had worked on every game since the series' inception, although Fire Emblem The Blazing Blade would be her last work on the series as a composer. She was helped by Saki Haruyama. These two made history, alongside with the character designer Sachiko Wada. I couldn't find a picture of her on the internet, and I respect that. Still images, but with so much emotional attachment to these characters and this simple world because of this music. I was overjoyed to see that the Binding Blade had the same art direction and music, which makes perfect sense since these two games are connected, with one being a prequel to another. About the graphics, they are exquisite. The animations in the combat, the scenario behind your characters fighting, the transformation your characters have, and the difference between normal attacks and special ones give you a sensation of movement that only 2D games could pass. I can connect this with the movements the Pokémon had in the DS era, especially in Pokémon Black and White 2. What are the visuals if they aren't accompanied by the combat of this game? The combat is based around the classic weapon triangle. Axes beats lances, lances beat swords, and swords beats axes. Bows don't follow this system, but they are super effective against flying enemies. Magic has its own triangle too. Elemental beats light, light beats dark, and dark beats elemental. As characters use weapons, their rank with their weapon goes up from E to S, with S being the highest and usually only available to promoted units. Every character belongs to a class, which decides what weapons they can use. When they reach level 10 and use a special item, they can promote into a stronger class, unlock new gear and abilities. I like the classes variations and the way the game handles their promoting feature, but some characters just die so much more easily than others, and that's annoying. Doesn't matter how much you improved your unit, how much you promoted your unit, if it's weak, it will always be, and this is sad in the case of ELIWOOD. He can't die because the story will fail without him, so you have to babysit him all the time because sometimes he can deal a critical hit, but most of the time he just deals medium damage and takes a lot of damage. It takes 4 or 5 hits to kill him, and forget about using him to beat a really dangerous enemy, like the final boss from a chapter. It's useless. Use some qualified unit like Marcus that can basically beat the whole game for you if you want to. I love this guy. To compensate for the permadeath feature, the game gives you side quests. They're nice, and some of them give you a new character to play with, or you need to explore inside the houses and villages to find this playable character and recruit him. Stay tuned with their designs. If it's a different design, it can be a recruitable character. This is nice to replace a character that died. The tricky part is that they are missable characters, and sometimes you can only recruit them if you talk to them using a specific unit. You can't know everything, so if you want to recruit them all, you must seek a guide. Without that, I doubt you recruit them all, and not just because of this, but because some of them can die pretty easily. The battle visuals animations are gorgeous. They make you feel smooth all the time. I don't know if I can be satisfied in 3D Fire Emblem games as much as I feel in the 2D games, when I hit a critical hit and I have a special animation. For example, it's like the 2D Disney movie era in comparison to the 3D era. In the case of Disney, you can see high quality in both of them, but in different ways. I'm worried this isn't the case with Fire Emblem, because, well, like the Pokemon example, I don't have the best experience with 2D becoming 3D in turn-based games. But I'll keep my mind open, because what really matters is not the changes, but the way they change it. If it's for the best, I'm totally in. This encapsulates my thoughts on the game's fundamental ideas. For the grand finale, I must talk about its true story, the ELIWOOD arc. The story of Fire Emblem is good, but not that good. It does have a few good points, but I recognize that the main reason behind the story of this game being a success and not a failure for me falls upon its characters. They are the heart and soul of this game, not the writing of the main campaign. ELIWOOD and Nectar have a nice friendship and can give the player a sense that these characters matter. Later in the game, we basically form a main trio, ELIWOOD, Hector, and Lyn. They work pretty well. If they didn't, I would consider this arc for the most part worse than Lyn's storyline, but they saved the story of this game for me. Lyn being herself and having a fair amount of importance makes me care even more about her storyline. Even though her storyline wasn't so important for the real story, all the seeds were planted there to grow here. Hector is the most complex of the trio for me. He can be a hothead sometimes, but still has a golden heart and can think rationally and leave his immediate emotions to help his friends. ELIWOOD, well, he's a classic hero we have here. Kind-hearted, polite, and brave. Basically an old school shonen protagonist. He reminds me just a bit of Seiya from Saint Seiya. I know Roy is the most famous character in the franchise, but look at this man! He's gorgeous and polite. So sad he can die with a slap on his face. But how can someone not like his personality? These three can give balance to the mood of the story, bring some humorous moments, and especially can make you care about them. That being said, that's the best point about the characters in this arc. We do have a few important characters like Marcus and the green-haired brothers, but that's it. Their party member isn't as interesting as Lyn and her friends like Sen and Kent and their funny dialogue chemistry. Even though they make an appearance in this arc, I don't feel they matter as much as they mattered in the previous arc. You have so many characters in ELIWOOD story that you can't care about them because the game needs a lot of characters to replace a character that can or already has died. It's great for game mechanics, but it's awful for diving into the characters. But the main trio's gold. Without spoilers, but still talking about this story, by the end of the game we have some plot twists that, even though they happen too near the ending, I think were pretty awesome. The problem is the imbalance of the game. I'm trying to avoid spoilers here, but I have to explain by this example why this game sucks sometimes. Imagine you are a legendary hero and achieve a point where you are so powerful that you can use a legendary weapon and destroy all of your enemies. You worked hard, you put all of your soul into it, and now you can carry this legendary weapon and finally beats the final boss. You're ready for the final battle and you get killed by 1 or 2 hits from the final boss, and some random character who can even be an old man beats his boss for you with medium difficulty. That's Fire Emblem. That is how this game ended, with an underwhelming ending for me. The ending arc was neat, almost peak. The penultimate chapter has a great set piece for the battle and a great OST too. It's really engaging for the end of the game. Gives you the vibe of an epic anime ending, which I love it. It's like the moment where everyone has grown in power, and by the gameplay and the upgrades, you feel this feeling much more because of the story that drives you. And then it ends with this hypothetical random old man beating the final boss for you because your great weapon sucks too. ELIWOOD is really weak, and I don't get why so many characters are weak and die easily. That's frustrating and makes me only use the same tank characters that can dodge everything and kill everyone with 1 or 2 blows. The supposed legendary weapons of the game can actually destroy your character's speed, and by this, they make characters die for the final chapter with basically 2 hits. This made me cringe at that point in the game because of this. The final battle was too difficult, but not in a skill way, but in an unbalanced way. Awful. About the ending itself, it's good. The twist that puts fires in the story, some with the beautiful soundtrack that works so much at the emotional and impactful moments. I was so immersed in the game that I even forgot that the game doesn't have voice acting. There's nothing like, oh my god, I've never seen this in a game before, but it doesn't need to be like this for it to be a truly meaningful moment. The biggest issue for me was the game length. The game simply doesn't know where to end it. After chapter 20, the game gets way harder, and each chapter takes more minutes, even an hour and a half to complete if you want to save everyone. Sure, this forces you to the famous "get good" to finish the game, but sometimes I just feel the game is unbalanced overall. I know I'm not the most experienced game in this genre, but come on, doing everything right for some random enemy to appear literally out of nowhere, forcing me to redo everything again just to save this mediocre secondary character is just annoying. By the end of the game, I let 2 or 3 of my characters die because I didn't care anymore. I wasn't having so much fun at this point. In the next Fire Emblem game I will play and review on this YouTube channel, I promise I will suffer the consequences of loss much more. I tried to keep everyone alive to see the different endings I could get and different dialogues. Besides, since this is my first Fire Emblem, I wanted to adapt and try a fresh and calm way to understand the game itself before going all in on something that could have frustrated me and didn't give me a connection with some characters I liked the most. Don't judge me, by the end I saw all of the characters who mattered to the plot as my friends, and somehow I could not see them in the story with me. These characters gave me a warm feeling that didn't make me want to lose them, except for Lowen, because he kept missing all the time, and I didn't use him that much when the characters from the previous story appeared. This guy only survived because I couldn't care less about him and ended up not using him at all. A fun thing that I want to mention about the ELIWOOD arc is about the exploration in the villages when you use him to enter the villages. Since he's famous, the villagers recognize him as a public personality as he is. It's a nice touch. Fire Emblem, The Blazing Blade, or just Fire Emblem, is a good game with good combat, even though it's unbalanced in some points and has great characters, but the bad point is that some of them, like the ones in Link's questline that you formed a bond with, don't matter much by the end. The main trio is gold though. It has a good payoff by the end of the game, playing what happened to the characters that survived it and the ones who didn't in your journey. The support system can change some of the endings. If I knew that, I would try harder to make things different. I finished the game in 25 to 27 hours. I'm satisfied with my experience with Fire Emblem until now. I want to play more of them, and I have a higher urge to play the 3DS and DS titles before the Switch releases because I see that this era of the 3DS was a favorite of the fanbase and must have a reason to think this way. My next one will be the first GBA title, The Binding Blade. I already started it. I see some of the maps of the Blazing Blade are actually from the previous game, The Binding Blade. It's just an observation since the game map is in the same nation on both of them. Sequels are sequels and not entirely different games. If I have to finish this video by giving the game a score, I would give it 7.5 out of 10. Good game, good experience, and it left a great taste in my mouth after I finished the game and remembered the time I played it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry I took too long to post this video after saying the previous one I would post at least one video per week. Now I'll say something different. I promise I will keep posting in the frequency I can handle and with the quality I'm satisfied with. Maybe I'll do simple videos to compensate for the lack of frequency. If you liked this video, please don't forget to subscribe. Leave a commentary about your experience with this game, and please share this video with someone you think would like it. My main goal is posting 2 videos per month. I'll try my best to do it, because I do have a lot of other videos already projected on the paper. Always remember, so whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Goodbye, thanks for watching, and God bless you.